And that was also the reason my grandfather started the drum company. He, as a young man, wanted to be a drummer, and his father was a violin player and trombone player and wanted him to follow in his footsteps. But luckily for me, my grandfather didn't. I would not want to be up here playing violin right now, but he finally got the point across to his father, and his father said, okay, you can be a drummer then, but you have to learn piano, you have to learn how to read music, and you have to learn all the rudiments and practice on the practice pad first before you get a drum. And he did. And after his years of practicing, he got a gig finally with the circus when he was the age of 19. And in those days, again, the circus was not a job that you would take because of the glamorous travel or staying in nice hotels. They traveled by horse-drawn carriages, which was very difficult. And they also had to travel at night because they needed the daylight to perform the circus. So they would take the smallest, lightest person in the band and put him on a donkey with a lantern tied to his back, and then hit the donkey to just walk down the path, and everybody would follow the light to the next town. And it just so happened that my grandfather was the smallest and lightest person in the band. So imagine that, you have to ride the donkey all night if you want to play drums in the circus. But he did that because he loved it. And during the off season from the circus, he got a gig in Chicago with a vaudeville act that was much more up-tempo music. And at the time, he was using a very large wooden bass drum pedal, very long footboard with a very long beater, so it was very slow and very difficult to work with and very awkward to carry. It didn't fold up or anything. So he wanted a faster, smaller foot pedal, so he made his own in his garage. And people started to see that and say, wow, where did you get that? And he said, oh, I made it. Well, can you make me one? So that's how the company basically started. He and his brother Theobald making bass drum pedals. And the first one that they made in 1909 was a small footboard, folded up, would fit in your pocket, and it was just extremely easy and fast, simple to maintain, and that's what everybody wanted. So he and Theobald started a drum shop in Chicago, and they called it Ludwig and Ludwig. And over the years, they started, all the drummers knew if you wanted anything or needed anything, that's the place to go because they're drummers, they know what they're talking about, they know how to listen to what you want and need. And I think that's what continued to make Ludwig Drum Company the best in the world because it was run by drummers and drummers who knew what other drummers wanted. So over the years, they started to make more and more contraptions, they called them, accessories to the drum kit. Cowbells, whistles, various wood blocks, things like that, tambourines. And at the time, as I said, they were called contraptions, but they soon got shortened to traps. And that's where the name trap set came from, which we also refer to a drum kit as a trap set. And the drummers of those days were always hired by how many contraptions or traps you had. The drummer would be contacted somehow through word of mouth, or the band would get in touch with him and say, bring all your contraptions down to the theater and do an audition and we'll see how it works out. So my grandfather and Theobald started making more and more of these things that you're seeing up on the slide presentation that were actually pages of our catalog. And there was page after page of these contraptions, and they would just come up with them as people needed them. And then pretty soon, silent movies were introduced. So the drummers were then asked to go to the movie theater and sit behind the screen and watch the movie from reverse and do the sound effects as they saw the movie playing out. If the train went by, they'd make a train sound. If a horse went by, they'd make the horse sound. So my grandfather had to make more and more contraptions and sound effects to satisfy these needs.